Good afternoon, Trinidad and Tobago. I'm Karen Cozier-Phillips. C News is live at noon. Topping the news at this time, 37 people were left homeless following a fire in Sealot's, Port of Spain on Tuesday evening. C News understands that 13 houses were destroyed in the blaze at Pioneer Drive, which reportedly happened at around 5:30 p.m. The fire spread quickly and officers from the fire services were called to the area shortly before 6 p.m. But little could be done to save the homes. The cost of the damages are currently estimated to be $100,000. Fire officers returned to the scene this morning. The cause of the fire is still to be determined. A Cocorite man was murdered at his home this morning. According to reports, 36-year-old Kareem Kwesi Eiffel was at his Harding Place Cocorite home at around 1:45 when 3 gunmen came to the property. They broke a window and fired shots at Eiffel before fleeing. The heavily wounded Eiffel was taken to the St. James Medical Facility, then transferred to the Port of Spain General Hospital. He died at the hospital shortly before 4 a.m. Police believe that Eiffel was targeted to send a message to his relative, who is involved in shady activity. Investigations into the incident are ongoing. The funeral of prisons officer Glenford Gardner is currently taking place. All visits to the nation's prisons have been cancelled as a result. Attorney General Faris Al-Rawi weighed on the issue of the safety of prisons officers during a press conference on Tuesday.
Involves a known suspect in respect of which there's an active manhunt. The second one, a target has been identified, and that is being processed as well. The third issue, there's certain information as well which can lead the police in an appropriate direction, which I'm sure that they will, with their own autonomy, be managing.
The Attorney General said, however, that the revelation that prisons officers were indeed being targeted had taken the spotlight from another issue, that of corruption behind the prison walls.
The Commissioner of Police and Commissioner of Prisons are well on target with what they're doing. They are looking for people right now. They recognized that prisons officers are essential service personnel and that they have to be cared for and looked after. But we have recognized in this country that there is a fact that there is corruption inside of the prisons. That's a fact.
At a joint press conference yesterday, Prisons Commissioner William Alexander and Acting Police Commissioner Stephen Williams said there was evidence to prove that prisons officers were being targeted by criminal elements. And the Attorney General has refuted claims made by the Bankers Association of Trinidad and Tobago that the country had been placed on the Financial Action Task Force grey list. In a press conference at the Agla Towers on Tuesday afternoon, he said this was not the case. The Attorney General said while the country had done poorly in the 3rd and 4th round mutual assessments by the FATF, it had been spared from such a listing. This was due to efforts undertaken by government to improve legislation with regard to anti-money laundering and countering of financing terrorism.
The position with respect to Trinidad and Tobago is, following our 4th round mutual evaluation, there were deficiencies observed primarily in respect of our effectiveness, which I've just explained to you, a few legislative matters, specifically being put into enhanced follow-up, then required us to go under a period of observation by the Caribbean Financial Action Task Force and by the Financial Action Task Force.
The Attorney General said comments by members of the opposition, which were yet to be proven, were a hindrance to improving the country's international image.
We would only be in jeopardy if we don't continue the momentum which we have started. Trinidad and Tobago now stands as a leading example in anti-terrorism work, in anti-corruption work, in reform of its criminal justice sector, in operationalization and improvement of its agencies.
Minister of Planning and Development Camille Robinson-Regis has called for Facebook to establish a regional hub with headquarters in Trinidad. The minister was speaking at the launch of Facebook's Connect America's Challenge, You Learn, You Endeavor at the Hyatt Hotel in Port of Spain. The event is part of the ministry's Global Services Promotion Program. The minister said, "I wish to extend an invitation to the representatives of Facebook to deepen their ties with the government and people of Trinidad and Tobago by working closely with the Global Services Program to establish a regional presence headquartered in TNT." She added one of the key objects of the program is to improve and increase the quality and quantity of digital skills available in Trinidad and Tobago. This is the CNews Live report at noon. Remember, you can keep up to date with all the latest news on our website at ctvtt.com, or you can check out our Facebook and Twitter pages at CNews Live. Incumbent PSA leader Watson Duke is confident he will stay on for another term after the elections on November 27th. He says he's amazed to see Oral Saunders come up against him as he has not contributed to the Public Services Association. Ian Wason tells us more.
Leading game changers into the PSA elections on November 27th, Watson Duke is confident of another term. He is aware of the challenges, but he says, according to the feedback he's been getting, he is expecting to be victorious. He says he has a formula to work with to make the union better and stronger after the elections.
The formula for the effective public service, you must have effective public officers without political interference. Too much political interference have been marring the face of the public service and causing public officers to act as lapdogs. We don't want that.
But how has he been able to switch from being the leader of the PSA to being the minority leader of the Tobago House of Assembly?
There is no taking off and putting off another hat. The hats are the same. One thing that is common in both roles as a politician and as a trade union is this: people. These same people that I represent as members, I also represent them as a politician. These same people, desires are the same.
He says he was taken by surprise that Oral Saunders, whom he expelled from the PSA some years ago, before a court order reinstated him into the union, has decided to run against him.
He has sat for 8 years at the St. Anne's Hospital where he works, and he has not handled one single grievance for a single member. He has not rallied in one single fight for pay increases for workers.
Mr. Duke says workers must become productive and must have training and qualifications. Ian Wason, CNews.
A 66-year-old pharmacist is currently out on $350,000 bail after appearing alongside a 27-year-old Morvan man jointly charged with 3 counts of rape and robbery on Tuesday. Ramnath Ramdan of Bayshore, San Fernando, and his employee Akeem Worrell are accused of robbing and coercing 2 women at gunpoint to commit sexual acts with Ramdan. The women both reportedly showed up for job interviews at Ramdan's business. Ramdan is accused of masterminding both incidents and faces 2 additional charges of grievous sexual assault. They answered the charges before Port of Spain magistrate Adia Mohammed. The matter was adjourned to December 5th. And 2 men have been charged with the murder of PH driver Dave Vincent in Tobago. Terence Jamal Paul, 38, and Shamil Muhammad Ali, 34, both from Trinidad, appeared before the Scarborough Magistrates Court on Tuesday to answer the charges. Director of Public Prosecutions Roger Gaspard had given police instructions on Monday to charge the men. The charges were laid on the same day by Corporal Guy Burt of the Scarborough Homicide Bureau. Exactly 1 week ago, Vincent was found along the Golden Grove Bucco New Road with gunshot wounds about his body. Police said he was a person of interest to them following a 2014 murder, which they said was still being investigated. Now for the weather for the period this afternoon, Trinidad and Tobago will be mostly sunny and at times breezy. This evening would be interrupted at times by the brisk shower in a few areas. Tonight would be mostly clear. Seas are expected to be slight with waves up to 1.5 meters in open waters and less than 1 meter in sheltered areas. Kes the Band showcased a new side on Tuesday at the launch of their family entertainment Imagination Park. Imagination, as it's being called, is a concert and educational and playtime event designed for families and younger fans. Speaking at the launch of the event at the St. John's Hall facility in Woodbrook, lead singer Kes Defentala said the event is about being inclusive to all.
A lot of talented kids, and some of it does not lie in academics. Some of it lies in talents with respect to singing, dancing. Some of it lies in cooking, as we say, art, science, all these different things. We want to create zones where not just kids can experience and have fun on the day itself, they can also get information as to how to continue. They meet let's just say the interactive cooking course. You have a lot of talented kids who are interested in cooking.
PSA President Watson Duke is hoping government will rethink the proposed Revenue Authority. This after the announcement was made to transition Board of Inland Revenue employees to the Revenue Authority. He says the transition will pose problems for workers. He spoke at his PSA offices in Port of Spain as he looked at the bill.
Last month, the government announced its intention to transition the employees of the Board of Inland Revenue to the Revenue Authority Board. But this does not sit well with the head of the Public Services Association, which represents the workers. Watson Duke says he's not happy about the employment conditions.
The board may enter into contracts for services with persons for the performance of such tasks as the board considers necessary. A contract for service is different from a contract of service. A contract for service makes the average worker into an independent contractor, which means that these workers will be robbed of certain benefits as an employee.
He says this makes them independent contractors, thus taking away from them sick leave and other benefits.
I have never seen this in any single document at all, legal document. This is a bill that should be passed, that they want to be have passed at the lower house and then at the higher house. When this becomes law, we are saying workers will be hired as independent contractors. What you are simply saying is that bye-bye civil service, bye-bye integrity.
He prefers the arrangement similar to the transition from NHA to HDC and others similar to it, and believes this transition is different. The Ministry of Finance stated last month, however, that employees will transition from their respective positions to the TTRA at terms and conditions no less favorable than those they currently enjoy if they so desire. Watson Duke also takes issue with the tenure of the CEO, which would be just 5 years.
The CEO, he cannot go beyond 5 years maximum. He must reapply for his job. When a person is given a 5-year term, he is tempted to act like a politician. I come for 5 years, I do my 5 years, I gain out time. I make how much I could make, create how much friends I could create, and then exit the system. I ain't sure I'm coming back.
The Trinidad and Tobago Revenue Authority will be responsible for the collection of government revenue. Ian Wason, C News.
It's time for sports, and we start with football. Midfielder Kevin Molino says the two friendly internationals against Grenada and Guyana will usher in a new era for Trinidad and Tobago's football. Molino, who is coming off a season with his MLS club Minnesota United, says the team needs to build on the momentum of the victory against the United States and end the year on a high. He adds this is a new generation of the Warriors.
Yeah, it's a stepping stone now. When you look at the last game we played against the US, there's a lot of young players, the players who come to the under 17 and the under 20. So now it's a stepping stone for us to keep building and keep growing. Especially we have to, as Coach rightfully say, we have to dominate the Caribbean first for us to dominate CONCACAF. And this is the turning point for us. And hopefully we listen to what you have to taught us this next couple of weeks coming up to the game and hopefully get the results that required for us.
Molino says this is also the start of a very long journey.
When you look at the US game, the Costa Rica game, we see what we can give when we have the right attitude and the right mentality to go out and fight for our country. You know, but it's going to take a long process now. We have to qualify for the Caribbean Cup, the Gold Cup, and this is major tournaments we're looking forward to. But our main focus right now is these 2 games and do the right things and implement the way and the style of play how we want to play for the next couple of years.
The games are slated for the 11th and the 14th at the Atto Bolden Stadium. And staying with football, in the Trinidad and Tobago Super League, a familiar name is back on the top of the table as the race to this year's title took what could be a decisive turn towards the east. Holders and former leaders Santa Rosa FC put their credentials on the table against the team that has been dogging them all season long in Guaya United, the former leaders. But when the dust cleared at the Arima Velodrome, the men from the Far East were smiling the brightest after a thoroughly deserving 3-1 victory.
Yes, organizers and players alike have been clamoring for large crowds to show up for events, but the bell was answered in a big way when Guaya made the trip to Arima to face holder Santa Rosa FC in a top-of-the-table clash as one face 2. The players had every reason to be happy and were presented with the ideal platform to show off their wares both individually and as a team. It was a wonderful showpiece for the Super League as well. And after the pleasantries, the crowd got what they gathered for, a real battle royale. And Santa Rosa fired the first salvo but found the keeper ready and waiting to deal with any eventuality. But at the other end, Guaya showed them how it's done, sending the crowd into raptures, most of whom were Guaya supporters, no doubt, as former national Andre Pacheco makes it 1-0 Guaya in the 17th. But moments later, Santa Rosa were back level when Ryan Stewart's free kick slips through a porous wall and in for the equalizer in the 26th. They went in search of another, but this time the keeper had it covered to preserve the tie. Unperturbed, Guaya would regain the lead when this lovely build-up is capped off by Kevin Jagdeo, who got enough contact to bounce it in for 2-1 in the 42nd, giving the Far Easterners the lead at the break. Santa Rosa tried to get back on level terms again, but they couldn't find that definitive touch in front of goal. Then the moment Guaya fans waited on, as the corner comes in and is met by the head of the diving Colin Hughes, whose powerful header flies in for 3-1. From the moment he got in front of his marker, it was all over, and he wasn't missing from that distance. Goal number 23. Things went from bad to worse for Santa Rosa, as coach Keith Lookloy was too vocal with the officials in voicing his disapproval with a call and was sent packing with his team 3-1 down and forced to view the rest of the game from the stands. But it was all over by the shouting as the final whistle eventually came, and the ride back to Guaya was so much sweeter as the players and their adoring fans returned home winners and, more importantly, back atop the standings with 46 points, 2 more than second place Santa Rosa.
Well, the TT Red Force are looking for their first win of the new Professional Cricket League season as they prepare to host the Windward Islands Volcanoes at the Oval from Thursday. The Dinesh Ramdin-led outfit have climbed up to 3rd on the table following their second successive drawn outing against Jamaica, which followed a similar result against Barbados, both times losing on first innings. Imran Khan's 5 for 69 was in vain, but it helped dismiss the Scorpions relatively cheaply. But the team's batting has finally started to come good after years of lagging behind the bowlers. And once the fielding catches up, things should improve. In fact, they are hoping to see those improvements as early as this weekend against cellar-placed Windward Islands Volcanoes, who are also looking to avoid another defeat. The Guyana Jaguars outfit have again surged to the top of the standings, counting back-to-back victories to start the defense of their title. Well, that's it for sport. Well, that's the C News report at noon. I'm Karen Kozier-Phillip. Remember, for up-to-date and breaking news throughout the day, you can visit the C News website at ctvtt.com. Do have a good afternoon.